Hello, my pretties. So nice for you to join me today. Halloween is coming. We are going to paint this beautiful watercolor. Yes, this is my haunted house. Do you like it? It has bats and spiders. I love bats. I could do without the spiders, as you know. Today, all you need are your watercolor paintings, your brushes, some water, and a Sharpie. Don't forget, tape your paper down to something hard. Yeah, we are going to have so much fun, my friends. Don't forget to have fun and laugh like my friend here does. He's not doing it right now. There we go. Okay, here we are, ready to go. I have my watercolor paper taped down and framed here, taped to a hard surface. I have my pencil, I have my eraser, I have the circular object that I'm going to use to trace the moon. I have my paints, my brown, my black, orange and yellow for the moon, and some purple and dark blue for the sky. Not a lot of colors we need for this. Got my water, got my palette, and my little cloth for dipping my brush on should I need it. We're ready to go. So I have my circular object in place. I'm putting it towards the top and the center of my paper. And I'm not pressing hard. I'm just going to go very, very lightly because I don't really want my pencil lines to show. But hopefully the dark paint that we put on will cover that. Now I'm also going to put my hill, because my haunted house is on a bit of a hill. It's going to be higher here and then lower here. And then we're going to draw our house. So our house is made up of squares, rectangles, and triangles. So I'm going to try to do it as easily as possible for you guys. First, we're going to make a square. Let's go from the tip of our moon here, go down, and not perfect squares, my friends, just estimates. And I'm pressing very lightly. So there's that one. Now I'm going to put a little bit of a triangle on it. And I'm just going to pretend it's there because we're not going to see it. It's going to be too dark to see. I'm going to put a rectangle on top of that. And I'm going to give that a triangular roof. And you see how it's leaning a little bit? It's not going straight up. It's going to look like our house is kind of just going whee. And I'm going to put kind of another square on top here. Now this line of my square has reached about the center of my moon, if you want some kind of perspective on that. And then I'm going to put a high kind of arching triangle, kind of curvy, on top of that. We're also going to stick a little chimney on some of them. Then I'm going to put a little triangle, or sorry, a little rectangle over here, and it's at a slant. And then a little roof on that, and a little chimney. And this is just going to connect like this, no big deal, because we are going to erase our inside pencil lines anyway, so it doesn't really matter. We're not going to see all the details on the house. It's just going to be black. All right, and then over here, there's a triangular roof. Kind of matches this one over here. And it comes down long. And then there will be a little triangular poke here. And then that is the bottom of the house. I'm going to erase this part of the moon and the part of the square, and I can see the outline of my house. I'm going to put in the center a rectangle with a semicircle on top. I'm going to get rid of all the pencil lines inside my house, and let's give it a semicircle window. bars on it. Okay, so there's the basic outline of our house. Let's give this turret over here a chimney. Now we're going to put some windows in these turrets. Let's put a big one here, a line down the middle, and I think I'll put 3 lines over. This one over here is going to have a long, skinny window. We'll say there's one big window in the middle of the house, 2 little windows in this long turret over here. I'm giving every window at least 1 center bar and 2 across. Well, I'm going to give this one a long window again, and 2 small ones on either side of the door, maybe a little bit wider than the other ones. Okay, that's looking good. Now I realized I forgot to mention the kind of brushes to use for this painting, but I know most of you just have this one smaller brush at school or even at home if it comes with your paint kit. So that's fine. Now, for watercolor painting, my friends, we have to be careful that certain parts of it are dry before we paint next to it, because otherwise it does what we call bleeding. So we are going to paint the moon first. My brush full of paint. Now be careful, we don't want to paint any of the turrets. I have not put any fresh paint on my brush yet. I just keep dipping it into the water and coming and borrowing some paint from here. So I'm going to get some orange on my brush now. Water and then orange. I'm putting some orange here and there just to get it a deeper tone. Okay, that looks good. I'm happier with that. Now, rinse your brush, get the orange off of it in the water, clean it. Onto the yellow, and we're going to paint inside our windows because the lights are on in our haunted house. Don't forget the window and the door. Clean your brush in the water. Let's do our dark ground, and let's just make it brown just to have something different going on in our picture, because we're going to have a lot of black in here. So I am just going to go along that line of the ground. Okay, we're going to let that dry, and we'll get some more colors on top of that a little bit later. Now, we want to make sure that our moon is dry before we do our sky, because otherwise, when we put water here, the yellow will merge into the sky and we won't get the color we want. So if you want, blow on it or wave it around a little bit, or just take a little break, take a little body break. Okay, my friends, I hope your painting is dry. I am going to just put some water on my paper, and then I'm going to dip my brush into the blue and then just make little dots. See how that spreads out? It's pretty cool. And you can do that with yours. Be careful not to use too much water. I'm spreading my water all around, and I like the look of the kind of like the spooky dark clouds that it's going to form on its own. I'm not getting too close to the moon just yet because I'm still afraid of bleeding, but I'm going to go right up to the house and not that close to the ground either, because that is also freshly painted. You can't dab it like this once it's dried, because then you'll just see the spots that you put on, but while it's still wet, it will just spread out if you have the thick watercolor paper. Now I'm going to add a little bit of purple in there, just cleaning my brush, getting into the purple, and I'm going to dab that a bit. You can see it's dried here. It's not that wet anymore, so I'm going to do it on this side, and then I'll go back to the other side and spread it a bit. Got my water, fresh brush, no paint on it, I'm just going to spread that paint around. I'm actually tapping it. Tap, tap, tap. You can always go back over it with some blue if you want it a little darker. Make sure you don't have any puddles on your paper. Just keep moving that paint around. Now this will dry much lighter, so I'm just adding a little more darkness to it now because I want it darker, and we're not going to keep going over and over again because then this lesson will take too long. Okay, it does look like a stormy night. Now, my friends, we have to let that dry. So again, go take a break. Okay, I'm getting my brush ready to paint my house. I'm using the thin brush again. Dip it into the black and, well, dip it into your water first and then into the black paint. And let's just start painting the house very carefully. And we don't want any white spaces. If you accidentally paint some black on the windows, clean your brush in the water and just try to go over that window with your wet brush and pick the color off. Or use your towel or a clean paper towel and then press onto it and it will pick the color up, and you'll just have to go over it with yellow later. Now that door, I want that door to stand out a little bit. Let's make it lighter, not so dark. I'm going to clean my brush, have it wet, and see, because the house is still wet, the paint is bleeding onto the door. And that's okay. Looks a little spooky. And if I want a few faded spots on my house, I might just take my wet brush and go over some of the spots on the roof maybe, and I'm pulling that paint off. You see how it's getting lighter there? Our purple might be dry enough. Let's add a couple of graveyard headstones. Maybe a little crooked one off to the corner here. I'm going to add just a bit of black to my ground. And you know what I want? I want a little pathway. So I'm mixing my brown and my black, and I'm going to go right in front of my door. Oh, look, it's bleeding on my door now. And I'm just zigzagging back and forth. And it gets bigger as it gets to the bottom because it's getting closer. And I'm taking some of the dark black off my gravestone just to make it a little grayer. Now I'm taking some of this black paint, which is too much in here, and I'm just going to pull it down on my hill just to divide the hill from the sky a little bit. Now also, you know what? I'm going to put a little bit more black, but not too dark, because I just realized our house is probably creating a shadow, isn't it? Because the moon's behind it, so there must be a shadow. Now do you see how all that black bled into my door? My door is not so gray anymore, but it's doing interesting things. I'm going to let that just dry a little bit, and then I might just create a bit more of a door on the bottom after it's dried. What we could do now is use the Sharpie to put a bit of a tree in here. Mine's dry. I'm going to use black paint, and you can use black paint too if you have a nice fine brush like I do. But if you'd prefer to use your Sharpie, then go ahead. Now you might notice I like doing trees. Should we make this a whimsical tree? It's got craggy, curly branches, almost like it has arms and fingers and wants to reach out. and grab your treats on Halloween. There's our whimsical tree. Or is it a question mark tree? Okay, on this side, let's put a little fence. You can use your black Sharpie for that too, or you can use some brown paint. I'm just going to put first my posts. Some of them are a little crooked because the fence might be falling down. And they're getting a little closer together as they go farther down the hill, because that's just what it looks like. And I'm going to put 2 logs on them. Oh my goodness, I'm seeing new things all the time. Now we have to add a bit of shadow to that. I'm just putting my brush in the water, not adding fresh paint, but we have to add a bit of a shadow. How about some bats? Now, I would say use your fine brush or your fine liner, your Sharpie, if you want to. I'm going to make a little bat in the distance, and basically it's going to look like a V. 2 little bats in the distance. So cute! I might just do one here that's a little closer. So I'm making the V, but we can also see parts of his wings because he's a little closer. So there's a little more detail in his little body. We can't see his eyes or his sharp teeth. Just a little more detail because he's closer. Now the other thing we have to do, and you can do this with your Sharpie as well, the lines on the windows. That is dry. So we'll do the line in the middle and then the 2 across. I'm going to put that frame on my door now that it's dry and put my doorknob on. I think I'm just going to put a little bit of black around the tops of my windows just to make them stand out a little more. Look at your sky. Did it dry really cool looking? I can see mine did. Putting a little bit of shadow. So I'm just going back to some of the parts that dried and look a little bit lighter. So I want to add some darkness to them. Okay, and I think we are finished, my friends. I hope you enjoyed this spooky haunted house painting. And if you want any more tutorials, keep posted or subscribe to my channel on YouTube. It's Yayla Productions. And I will be doing more watercolors because I love watercolor. And I hope you do too. Bye.